I need an apology from Nickelodeon because I was very upset that I didn't see lockers. I didn't see people getting pushed into them. I didn't have concerts in school and people just didn't break out into song. I need an apology from Nickelodeon right now because what I got was not what I was told. It was not what I was expecting. But little did I know that there were other shocks that I was going to experience. Hi guys, my name is Josie, and in this video I'll be talking about 5 cultural shocks that I experienced after moving from Nigeria to the UK. Now, just a disclaimer that these are my experiences and it might not be the same for everyone, but these are the things that I saw that I thought were very different. So beginning with number 1 is openness. I don't know if that's a word. But in the UK, they were very open with speaking about topics that I would say were very on the low in Nigeria or weren't introduced formally to you until you reached a certain age. For example, periods. When I moved to the UK, I remember I was in the playground. I was new, so I was just standing around awkwardly listening to the conversation. And I remember the girl was like, I actually just got my period 4 days ago. And I remember being so in shock. I was like out in the open just like that. And this shocked me so much because this is not something that I really saw people talking about openly in my time spent in Nigeria. It was just something that you discussed like with your mom, but it wasn't really something that you brought up amongst your peers. I never did that. And other topics as well in that line. For example, I was in around 3rd grade, I think, in Nigeria, and I remember this teacher, he came around to this group of girls, and I remember he was threatening to get these girls suspended for talking about pregnancies because it really just wasn't discussed, talking about boys, crushes, any of that. And even if people did, it was in secret. Like, you didn't really mention it in front of like adults. So you can imagine how shocked I was when a sexual education class was introduced in my school in England in 5th grade. I was like, are we seriously going to be talking about this like in front of the class? I was so concerned because apart from the fact that I felt we were very young, I was surprised it was being introduced so formally. Like, this was an actual part of the education system. So I definitely felt that the culture was a lot more open about topics that would have been kept a lot more low-key, I would say. Number 2. Now imagine you walk into a hair salon in Lagos. You actually need to wash your hair. You've just taken it out after about a month. But then you also realize that it's been really hard to comb your hair recently. And so you also decide to relax your hair. And then after that, you would like to get some medium burgundy box braids. Now, after all of this, your bill is about 5,000 naira, I would say, when I was there, which, you know, isn't very much. But after moving to England, I found out that these services that were cheaper actually came at a much higher cost in the UK. I was so surprised when I heard that braids in the UK were about 50 to 100 pounds. I was like, that's why I feel that Nigerians or Africans who live abroad, there's a lot more people that are DIY, especially when it comes to beauty. So hair, nails, lashes. A lot of people have learned to do things themselves. When they hear the price, all of a sudden everyone's going on YouTube looking at countless videos of how to start a knotless braid. The same thing with like plumbing and jobs or trades that wouldn't really have been applauded in Nigeria were a lot more acceptable because of how lucrative they were. Number 3 is how indirect people were. It took me a while to get adjusted to people asking me, are you okay? Because in my head, are you okay is like, are you mad? And I was like, hey, how are you? Their indirect way of speaking is embedded in their day-to-day conversation. Like, my parents would tell me at home, get a pencil, get me this thing. But in school, they would be like, do you want to get me that thing? Like, do you want to get me a pencil? In my head, I'm like, no, I don't want to. But I know that it means get it for me. It's just said more indirectly. Number 4 is that your grades really don't define you. In Nigeria, honestly, I was a smart kid. And so that really shaped a lot of my identity and how I was perceived because of my grades. So they really did play a big deal in how teachers treated you sometimes, in the prospects that you had, and they weren't really like extracurriculars, I would say, that were important. Yes, we did do like, we have like inter-house sports, but these were just like once in a year events that happen at the end of the school year, you know, for fun. It wasn't really like sports taken in the US, for example, where you have like the NBA, or in the UK we have like the Premier League, because there were so many more options. And I feel the system was built so that even though you weren't really smart academically, you still had a chance of actually making a good amount of money. And although grades still were important, of course, especially depending on the career that you want to go into, it really just wasn't that identity defining thing I felt it was to me when I was in Nigeria. Number 5, and this one is still something I shake my head at, is the over exaggeration of words. I was just confused when I moved to my new school and people that I'd only met like 3 days ago were saying, "Oh my god, I love you so much." I was like, "Love, care. We just met." Or people would say, "I hate my life." It was just like, wow, it just felt like there was a lot of over exaggeration, very hyperbolic speech. And then the use of mental disorders to describe much more trivial situations. People would say, "Oh my god, I have PTSD from getting lukewarm water at a restaurant." Just didn't really make much sense. Some other honorable mentions are food, the culture of respect, but the list is really long, to be honest. That's it for today, guys. These are just some of my silly thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed day. Bye bye, guys.